Okay, we're recording.
Thank you, Sam. Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday, October 9th, 2024. My name is Jeff Guthrie. I'm your Region 2 Transportation Planning Supervisor, and I'm here today to open up the Central Front Range TPR MMOF call for projects. Excuse me. Sorry about that. The smoke and dust in the air is going to make me clear my throat. I apologize. You guys have to hear this. This meeting will be recorded so that we can then share it with anybody, anytime. Anybody can review this. And as always, I am available for follow-up questions, phone calls, and in-person meetings if you so desire, as long as we have time to schedule. On the call with us, we have Sam Hughes, the administrator of the Central Front Range TPR. We also have Matt Pettit, fantastic Matt Pettit from our CDOT Region 2 local agency program. He is one of the project managers that will be working with you all on the non-transit projects if you're awarded. And then from our headquarters, we have Medora Bornhoft. As I said earlier, she is the overall MMOF program manager. She's actually the active transportation section manager. Is that right, Medora? I don't want to butcher your title. Thanks.
Yeah, something like that.
But the real point is we have straight from the horse's mouth, right? We have three of us at least here to answer any and all technical questions. Here is the agenda. I trust everybody can read it. We will go through the guidelines with eligibility and requirements being highlighted. I don't want to read the guidebook to you all word for word. Hopefully everybody had time to go through that. Again, I can happily follow up with anybody about questions. We will launch into the amounts. This is a 5-year call for projects, fiscal years 24 through 28. We will also look at your local match rates based on your jurisdiction, whether it's the county on behalf or the municipality. We will run through the project application. It's a fillable PDF. And then if you notice, there are 3 action items. Today, I would like to decide, with the few members here present, I would like to decide on the criteria weighting in the score sheet. I would like to decide upon who is going to make up the scoring committee. Excuse me, I would like a small handful of people, if possible, for that, an odd number, so we have a tie-breaking vote if necessary. If you submit an application, you are more than welcome to be a member of the scoring committee. We will just ask that you recuse yourself from scoring your own application. Excuse me, and then we will run through my proposed application timeline. And I say proposed because if you all disagree with it in light of the upcoming holidays, then we can change this around. I just worked back from the next quarterly Central Front Range TPR meeting in January, and I hope that I allowed enough time for application development because I know there will be a whole heck of a lot of back and forth. And then at the end of this, I hope to not drone on and bore everybody, but at the end of this, however much time is left over, hopefully plenty. If you have any kind of project specific questions, again, the subject matter experts are here, so we can get into the weeds with you all. All righty, thank you very much. Sam, would you mind sharing the program guidelines, the big like 26-page attachment, I think it is. Thank you. Stand by, everybody. Cue the Jeopardy music. And there we go.
Trying to find it. Hold on.
No problem. I believe it was called.
Is it the guidebook?
Correct. That is correct. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Excuse me. Again, I'm not going to read this word for word, but just so everybody knows, this program, Multimodal Transportation and Mitigations Option Fund, MMOF, was legislatively created a couple of years back in the 2021 legislation. Senate Bill 260, you will hear us refer to from time to time. That's the Senate bill that created a whole host of different fees on different things like package delivery or fuel delivery, things like that. Some of those fees then fund this program with state money. So for the years that we are discussing, the fiscal years 24 through 28, that is state funding. Because it is state funding, it is eligible to match to federal funding if you are bundling this with some other funding, i.e. TAP or Safe Routes to School possibly, or a different project. Next slide, please, or next page, please. Thanks. And then going through here, there's table of contents. Next page, please. I don't need to go through that with everybody. The program goals, this is very important to highlight. A couple of these goals, I will read through these. Benefit seniors by making aging in place more feasible. We definitely hear that and have heard that at the past several Central Front Range TPR meetings, that is a significant issue. We hear that from Commissioner Elsner especially. The program is supposed to benefit residents of rural and disproportionately impacted communities. Please note the DI communities is an active link to our EnviroScreen tool. And when I say our, I mean the states. And I can, again, hold your hand through that poll. If you've not used the EnviroScreen tool, it's actually quite handy once you figure it out to zoom into different census blocks and tracts to figure out if your community upon which you're applying is DI. You were supposed to provide these communities with more accessible and flexible public transportation services, enhance mobility for persons with disabilities, safe routes to school for children, although there is a specific Safe Routes program, MMOF funding can be used towards that, or reduces emissions of air pollutants and greenhouse gases. Excuse me. Project eligibility. Your projects, your potential projects can be eligible for MMOF funding only if they satisfy at least one of the following goals. Again, only if they satisfy at least one of the following program goals and at least one of the following multimodal project definitions. Excuse me, the multimodal MMOF projects must provide benefits to or integration of transportation modes other than for traditional roadway vehicle use alone. And so this is defined in the legislation. This includes capital and or operating costs for both fixed route and on-demand transit services, transportation demand management programs, multimodal mobility projects enabled by new technology, multimodal transportation planning and studies, that's key, bike or pedestrian infrastructure projects, modeling tools for transportation, and greenhouse gas mitigation projects that decrease vehicle miles traveled or increase multimodal travel. The funding types, I told you, the program is currently funded entirely with state funds. The last round 2 years ago, I believe it was, in 2022, if you all, the people who've been around the block, you all might remember there were federal ARPA funds mixed in there. Going forward, this is state funding only again. So again, you are able to leverage this award if you're awarded towards other state and or federal funding. Next page, please. Thank you. The regional funding allocations, really quickly, the formula, which is set by the State Transportation Commission, first allocates, as that bullet point says, 81% of these program funds to the 5 metropolitan planning regions, and then 19% to the 10 rural TPRs. Central Front Range is one of the 10 rural TPRs. Excuse me. Scroll down, please, to the minimum project sizes. These are project requirements. Minimum sizes as indicated for infrastructure projects. We ask that there is a minimum $300,000 total project cost. This is really a return on investment for you all for the amount of work that you will put into this, not only developing your application, but administering the grant if awarded and then running through all of the requirements. If it's a non-infrastructure project, in other words, a planning, like that says, purchases, maybe vehicle purchases, operations funding for transit, the TDM stands for Transportation Demand Management. If it's non-infrastructure, we ask that it's a minimum $25,000 grant amount. Notice for infrastructure projects that $300,000 is a total project cost. And so that's the grant amount in addition to your local match. But for the non-infrastructure, we're asking a minimum $25,000 grant amount. That's just the grant amount, not including your local match. As it says, bundling of similar projects is strongly encouraged when possible. If you need to do that to meet the requested project minimums, great, because hopefully, as the next clause says, that will maximize your cost efficiency. And then very importantly, the next sentence, the Central Front Range TPR may also choose at your discretion to increase these project minimums to your region. I am not suggesting that you do that. That is entirely your choice. Next page, please. Match requirements. This is very, very important. We're all very interested in this. There's a whole table at the end of this guidebook, and then in a separate attachment, I'll get to that. I've transcribed the Central Front Range, county, and municipality match amounts. Do please understand, I am human. I transcribed the local match amounts. I hope I didn't make a mistake. I quadruple checked it. If I did make a mistake on my handout, no matter what, the match requirements in this guidebook supersede it all, and what is listed in this guidebook is correct. All of that being said, this program comes with a 50% local match rate, legislatively set, and then based on a variety of socioeconomic factors, each county in the state and each municipality in the state, Michael Snow, the program manager at headquarters, ran through a formula and then determined the actual 0, 25, or 50% local match rate. We will get to that. But really quickly, if you have a 50% local match rate, as that example says, if it's a $1.4 million facility project, well, $700,000 is an MMOF award and $700,000 is your 50% local match. And then as it says, italicized bold, as I've already said, these MMOF awards may be matched by any other federal, state, local, or private source. Any other, that's very important, including other competitively awarded federal highways, federal transit, or state grants. That's key. The next paragraph goes through the match reduction or exemption for those of you who municipalities and counties have less than a 50% match rate. The 4 criteria are listed out, how this figures into there. This is also important if anybody is watching this that is not a county or a municipality. In other words, potentially a regional transportation authority, a school district, a metro district, as examples. Excuse me, those applicants must provide the match funding rate required of the county and or municipal government of the area the agency serves. So I guess as an example, Teller Senior Coalition, we will go with the Teller County match rate. Applicants that are uncertain of the applicable match rate for their projects should reach out to me or the appropriate CDOT program support. That could also be our Region 2 local agency people. Applicants down at the bottom of this page, this is also key for everybody to keep in mind. Applicants can seek approval for a match rate reduction to either 25 or 0% on a case-by-case basis. First, you must, if you are desiring a match reduction, you must approach the Central Front Range TPR to get the TPR's buy-in to support your request. Excuse me, and then we will work with Central Front Range TPR staff to submit that written letter to the State Transportation Commission to request. That includes the justification, so you will have to do just a little bit of homework on your end to supply us with that information. All of that being said, I can say that in the last round of MMOF, at least here in Region 2, but I think it's the entire state, at least here in Region 2, the small handful of entities that did request a match reduction rate were granted that by the Transportation Commission. So that is a possibility. Next page, please. In-kind match. This is very important to a whole heck of a lot of agencies, understandably. Excuse me. Please note the second sentence in that top paragraph. In-kind contributions are provided only by a third party to the project, and therefore do not include any materials or services provided directly by the local agency awardee. And so examples of that in-kind contribution would include services, materials, or goods, or even equipment donated by that third party. Said in-kind contributions may be used to satisfy the match requirements for a project. However, you please must submit an in-kind match proposal with your draft and final MMOF applications. And that in-kind match must first be approved by CDOT staff prior to the award of the MMOF funding. Proposals, this is important, proposals for use of in-kind match after the time of award of the funding will not be eligible. And then there are 2 hyperlinks. For more information on the in-kind approval process, you can inquire with the program support at our headquarters. And then we also have a linked flowchart that is really fun to navigate for the in-kind approval process. Excuse me. Scrolling along. This is also important, and your region local agency coordinators, in other words, Matt on the call here is one of them. They will very much help you. They're extremely qualified to help you through this. Please do understand that because projects most often are delivered by subcontractors that are selected and hired through your competitive procurement process. However, a local agency grantee may be able to deliver all or a portion of a project through the labor and resources under its control if it's in the public interest and it is cost effective. That does come up across multiple applications, especially in our rural partner areas. Again, please do have these conversations often and early with your project managers here at CDOT. As that second paragraph says, must coordinate approval and guidance directly with your CDOT project manager. It is recommended applicants planning to directly deliver any portion of an MMOF project should inquire with CDOT for clarification prior to applying. Moving along through here, as I've already mentioned, you can combine your MMOF award with other program funds. Those acronyms stand for Surface Transportation Block Grants, Carbon Reduction Program, Transportation Alternatives Program, Federal Transit Administration, Revitalizing Main Streets, and importantly, the etc. That is not an exhaustive list of other programming funds that MMOF can be matched to. Pretty much, with maybe a few exceptions, the state MMOF funding can be matched to any and all state and or federal grant sources. Excuse me. Next page, please. Funding expirations. So because this is state funding, as that first sentence says, state funding in this program does not carry a specific expiration date. However, please understand, it is a general rule of thumb. If you enter into a contract or intergovernmental agreement with CDOT for state funding for a project, there is generally a 10-year expiration date on those funds upon execution of the contract. That's when the clock starts ticking. Any funding expiration dates that are applicable to previous awards of MMOF funds will continue to apply. So the aforementioned ARPA federal funds that were tied in with MMOF 2 years ago in the last call for projects, those funding deadlines have not changed. They have not expired. And if you have any concerns about those, do please reach out to your local agency program coordinator. Excuse me. As that says, extenuating circumstances beyond your control and where regulations allow, you may request to the TPR to be approved for a funding expiration date extension. Do not depend on that, though. It is not a guarantee. Reporting requirements, we will ask awardees to provide annual and or periodic reports. It could be even as regularly recurring as the quarterly TPR meetings. But do please be prepared to report on the project status and at the time of the final completion. And then annually, the TPRs compile project status information to share with us at our headquarters so that we can report to the legislature how we are spending your money. Scroll on down, please. Project applications and the selections of these projects are made by you all, made by the TPRs individually. Again, you are all members of the Central Front Range Transportation Planning Region, and that lies entirely within CDOT Region 2. If anybody does not understand that, I can explain that further afterwards. The contact information that can be found on our planning website, it's Sam Hughes. She's hosting the call. If you all don't know her, I highly recommend reaching out. Required CDOT review of applications and scope change requests. So, excuse me, myself, our fantastic local agency project team, along with our specialty units. So our environmental unit, our right-of-way unit, our utility program manager, And I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but all of the staff here in Region 2 will be reviewing your draft applications to help you all develop the best and most quality application you possibly can submit, and also to hopefully identify any fatal flaws ahead of time so it is not too late. That is why here in a second I will share the proposed application timeline with you all. I have built in approximately close to 2 months for this whole back and forth process because it is a heck of a lot of back and forth. I'll serve as the point of contact for Region 2 staff. And then once the projects are awarded, you will be assigned to your individual project manager in our local agency group. And then I can also be the point of contact here at CDOT Region 2 to get you in touch with whoever the appropriate staff member is, either at Region 2 or at headquarters, to answer your technical questions. Again, eligibility, the projects meet at least one of the MMOF program goals at the very beginning of this document. And eligible project types, scroll down to the next page, please. Thank you. For your budget, we ask that you submit accurate cost estimates. Error on the side of caution is my professional advice to you all. You never know when cost escalations might hit, within reason, of course. Implications and ascertain the status of proposed match funding sources and implications of mixing MMOF with awards of other funding sources. If you are, going to match an MMOF award with a different funding stream, do please be cognizant of the potential different local match percentage rates. In other words, as an example, the TAP, the Transportation Alternatives Program, comes with a traditional 20% local match rate. MMOF is either 0, 25, or 50. So on your end, that'll come with not creative, but just very fine-tuned budgeting to figure out the local match for each of those and to manage those two grants separately. For project delivery, we're looking at project readiness. In other words, do you already have the property? Do you have ownership of the property upon which you are proposing to build a facility? Or have you even decided to start looking at potential locations, that kind of thing? That obviously impacts the readiness of the project and the mobilization schedule of any contractors and other constructors. We do ask that you develop an adequate timeline to allow for all of these pre-award and pre-construction activities. When I say pre-award, that is literally the application development, the draft and final application. That's that 2-month period I will propose to you all. And then pre-construction activities are the environmental right-of-way utility clearances, the specialty unit clearances here at CDOT that do take time based on what the scope of the project is. And some of those can cause potential delays. We will try to address any perceived anticipated delay in the application development. That is part of the specialty unit review on our end. I also, in Region 2, will work with my boss, the Region Planning and Environmental Manager, with his environmental clearance unit to develop ballpark estimates of those environmental clearances for you if your agency does not have the technical capacity to either do themselves or contract out the NEPA, the environmental clearances, then we can help you develop a proposed budget for those to include in your request so that we can help you fund those requirements. And then the scope and feasibility, we will review the feasibility of the proposed work. Can this be done? Can this be done in this location? Wherever that is. The clarity and the completeness of the project proposal. So any questions that we might have in the draft development period, we will definitely be reaching back out to the applicants to clarify those. And then, as I mentioned, any potential regulatory, technical, or logistical challenges. That is, what Region 2 staff will help you identify when you are going through the draft application development process. And then our goals are to help you identify these challenges to prepare the best application proposal you possibly can. We definitely would like to reduce the number of withdrawn or delayed projects. We very much would like to work with you all to reduce the overall cost and burden for each and every one of you and for our internal staff supporting these projects. And then finally, we want to work with you all very closely to develop the most complete project application to enable, to better enable project selection by the committee. I think, go ahead, please. Yeah, thank you very much. So please note at the bottom of page 8 in this guidebook, there is one central CDOT email address that we ask all applicants to submit both their draft and final applications to. It is the hopefully easy to remember MMOF@state.co like Colorado.us. That is being monitored by both Medora on this call and Michael Snow. Some of you might remember Michael Snow from last time. And then those two will be then just redistributing those applications to the appropriate region personnel. We hope to make this as easy on you all as possible by having that central repository. All of that being said, again, yours truly, I am always available for phone calls, emails, questions, meetings, whatever you have up until that point. Excuse me. I think that is all. Please, next page, please. Thank you. So the application timeline. Would you mind, Sam, switching over to, I think that's what it's called, the PDF that, oh no, I'm sorry. No.
The MMOF timeline one?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that, everybody. So on this, thank you very much. This is my proposed, as it says, working back from potentially awarding these, announcing the awards at the January 13th Central Front Range quarterly TPR meeting. So at the top, here's the workshop today, October 9th. And then this formally kicks off the application period. I have figured in there a month from today, 4 weeks from today, Wednesday, November 6th, as the final due date for your draft applications. And then another 3 weeks later, just before Thanksgiving, that's why I mentioned that at the beginning of this, the holidays are coming up. Just before Thanksgiving, we ask that you submit your final applications. Those will be finalized again upon or after the back and forth review between CDOT staff and each applicant, each agency. And then, excuse me, I'm giving a week and a half, proposing a week and a half for the scoring committee to go through on their own, each individually. We will provide the score sheets. We'll cover that in a second. And then I will host a workshop similar to this for just the scoring committee members, where we can all put our heads together that following week, the second week of December, and then finalize finalize your selections. And I mean your as in the TPR members. I am not scoring these. CDOT staff are not scoring these. And then that allows for plenty of time for the Christmas holiday and New Year's holidays, any kind of reconciliation or any kind of pushback that we need. I think that this allows for time to then at the regularly scheduled quarterly Central Front Range TPR meeting in early January to be able to announce the awards and send out award letters. So note that on the agenda, this is an action item. I would like to ask the group if, I'll stop talking for now, and I'd like to ask the group if there are any concerns with this timeline or if anybody would like to suggest any changes. Thank you.
Leo's got his hand raised. You want to go ahead, Leo?
Yeah, just a question. Do you anticipate that we'll get feedback from the scoring committee between the draft and final applications?
Actually, they will likely not see the applications until they are the final applications, Leo. So all of the feedback that you're going to get up until the final applications are due, the feedback that you will get will come from either myself or one of our local agency staff here in Region 2. And again, that feedback is designed to help turn in the best final application. once those are finalized and turned in, the scoring committee they don't touch them, they only read them and review them. So there's no more feedback beyond that point.
Okay. One more question. The $300,000 minimum for an infrastructure project, is that a $300,000 project total minimum or a grant award minimum?
Total project cost. Good question.
Thank you.
And those again are suggested, and those numbers really do come from a general feeling amongst all of our local agency partners and speaking with them of essentially how is this worth our time of project administration, submission of materials, oversight, etc. Thanks, Leo. Those are good questions. Okay, if there are no other right now, then I propose that I stick with this, and then we can send this out in a follow-up email to this workshop today that I'll type up today and send over to Sam.
Hey, Jeff, this is Michael Snow. Hi, I'm just realizing you've got final applications due November 27, and then scoring committee have to have their scoring done by the 6th. But if CDOT needs a chance to provide an additional review of those final applications, is that enough time?
If that was I didn't think of that possibility, only because I was assuming that we would confront any and all challenges during the whole application development. But that's certainly an option. I am absolutely not opposed to that.
Well, you have to realize that CDOT's review during the draft is intended to give the applicant as much feedback as possible for them to develop a good application. One, it doesn't mean that they're going to address those issues. And two, a final review is meant for CDOT to be able to provide feedback that we think the TPR needs to know when evaluating the project. So it's a little bit of a different review and feedback. And I think you really want to make sure that there's time to do that for staff to, for CDOT to do that and to be able to provide that feedback before the committee members are reviewing and developing some scores. So, this is kind of pinched right up against the holidays anyway. Is there maybe, there's no big hurry here, right? Another few weeks or month or something of delay is not going to impact anything. It's better to, have the time you need to do it well.
Certainly. No, that's a great point. Obviously, I didn't take that into account. That's why extra eyes are great. So yeah, I took these notes down. Let me rework this, and then I can send this back out. But you raise a great point. The only hurry or pinch that I felt was in relation to the fact that most people do take a whole heck of a lot of time off this time of year. But that whole, the point that you just brought up about review time from the scoring committee, I think that this does allow to be moved easily. So let me follow up with Sam with changing a couple of those dates, moving them further back, and then we can redistribute that. But most importantly, thanks, Michael. I mean, that was a really good point. Most importantly, I just want the group to really understand that most importantly, we, CDOT, we want to incorporate as much time as we can reasonably allow to help everyone develop the best possible application. And so my goal is not to hurry through this at all. My goal is to get absolute quality projects proposed for this. So thank you for that. Stan, would you mind going back to the guidebook, please?
Sure. I do have a question about this though, real quick. How, I guess I'm confused why the workshop is after the scoring is due by the committee.
That's another good point. Well, I can speak to that. I can speak to that, Samantha. I mean, typically, when in the different grant evaluation cycles that we do at CDOT, we try to, one, you have the definition and the descriptions of the criteria, and you let the individuals kind of go through and make an evaluation based on their interpretation. Then when you get together and you compare notes, that's when you can highlight maybe, oh, wow, I kind of interpreted that criteria in a different way. And I hear others, somebody gave it a 10 and I gave it a 3. There's clearly a difference of what we're trying to evaluate. And so you make those adjustments in that discussion and you go, so everybody who's on the committee then has the opportunity after the discussion to adjust how you've scored it. So you then finalize it afterwards and make your recommendations.
Okay, I understand better now. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I mean, you can also do it the other way around, right? You can have a discussion of going through it and maybe come to an understanding. Like, hey, let's talk about our criteria. What are we, what do we consider a good score or a low score, and talk through that. And then you go away from that and do your scoring and come back. But that's a little bit more, it's two commitments, two, committee workshops, but you can do it that way if you feel you need to. I figured today that this body, all of you together, would be talking through those criteria, and you will understand what it is. Hopefully pretty uniformly, you'll all have the same understanding for what it is you're evaluating on each of those criteria. So I would think you kind of have a foot up on it already.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Sam.
There is, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
No, let's obviously get together after this to then figure this out.
Yep, no problem. Diana Van Auken from Teller Senior Coalition dropped a question in the chat. She said, what is the timeline between award and available funds in CoTrams? I think that's a really good question.
Yeah, great question. So what you're talking about is the timeline between when an award decision is made by the TPR and the time at which you can then actually begin work or make an encumbrance of the funds, or place an order for a vehicle, let's say, or something. And in general, you're talking about the grant requirements, and that is that a grant contract has to be executed between CDOT and the awardee before you can start any of the work or any of the procurements of vehicles and such. And that can take a while. There's work for the awardee to be done, right? You have to work with whoever your project manager is at CDOT to work through defining the scope and getting everything clear as to what's, that gets rolled into the grant contract, and then it can take a while for the grant contract to get executed. And I presume that's what you're referring to when you say the funds are available in CoTrams. That means that your grant has been executed and you can start making expenditures and billing against it. Now, all I can say is, our division in transit and rail has had a lot of challenges in the recent years of getting grant contracts executed. My advice to every awardee is that you don't sit after an award announcement is made, especially if you want to get going on a project quickly. You do not sit back and wait for CDOT to tell you what's going on. You should be actively saying, who's my project manager? What's needed to get this going? And ask those questions and stay on it, and you will have better success and have things executed more quickly.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Diana.
What would you like me to go to next, Jeff?
Right. Back to the guidebook real quick, please. Thank you. Competitive selection process is required for this, so we will get to the scoring people here. Please actually go Samantha to the Excel scoring template.
Do you want me to make a quick synopsis here, Jeff, of what
Go
we
for it.
mean by the competitive process? So, Central Front Range, it has the authority to make your award decisions. You can determine here, how you want to evaluate what are the priorities in terms of what kind of projects you want to award and so forth. However, they are state funds, and CDOT, as the state agency, has responsibility for oversight, which means it has to follow any state regulations that apply. And one of those is that public funds must be awarded under a competitive process. And that competitive process has three basic tenets. One, that you have an application. We're doing that. Two, that you've identified some sort of criteria by which you will evaluate each of the competing projects. And then three, you make award decisions advised by those scores. So it doesn't mean that you're going to devise a quantitative score and you can only award the ones that rise to the top scoring. It needs to advise it. We know that no criteria is able to identify everything that you want to consider in a project. So you do your quantitative scoring, and then you sit down and you may identify some other things about various projects that are a little bit more subjective in nature, and you can then make your decisions accordingly. So what Jeff's going to walk you through here is a set of criteria that are really commonly seen in other multimodal type of grant programs and the type of things we make evaluation on. This is just a suggestion. It's a suggested list for the Central Front Range to start with. You may read through these and see, wow, these are exactly how I think we should do ours. Or maybe, no, some of them aren't really significant for us. Let's take this one and this one out. Or maybe there's something that's missing that you would prefer to add as a criteria. So that's the process you want to go through here today. And then, of course, you get to decide on the weighting, like which ones are more important relative to the others, and you can change the scores. We recommend that you try to just have a sum total of 100. It just makes the math simpler to understand as it plays out, but you don't have to. There you go. So take it away, Jeff.
I strongly
quick,
recommend
Jeff,
it. Yeah.
I just want to ask, because I had to scroll out a little bit. Can you see that?
I can see it. Hopefully everybody else can. I think if everybody's not familiar with Teams, if you hover your cursor over the bottom left of the screen that you're looking at, there should be a zoom function for us on our end to zoom in.
Well, I didn't know that. That's kind of cool.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.
It's pretty neat.
I just want to make sure everybody can see.
This, I strongly, to Michael's point, yours truly strongly recommends the criteria weight adds up to 100, because that is that makes it a very easy math, please. But to Michael's point, I would like everybody here to think about this, take a few seconds and think about this. Think about that column A, the criteria name, and their importance to each and every one of you and your region. Do look at the description for each of those names, and then importantly, look at the weight. That's those 15s and 10s. Note that currently these are adding up to 100. Note that currently the network and modal connectivity and safety are the most weighted at 15% each. Greenhouse gas mitigation 10%, equity 10%, so on and so forth. And so I would like to ask the group, do you agree with row 5? We can go through this line by line. Do you agree with the network and modal connectivity? So does this project contribute to a complete bike, pedestrian, and/or transit network? Does this project close gaps in those networks? Does it extend routes, maybe a bike route or a sidewalk or a transit route? Or does it provide crucial intermodal connections? Intermodal meaning between modes of transportation. So the car, the bike, the foot, the skateboard, the bus. But does the group here, does the Central Front Range TPR members here present, do you all think that this criteria is a 15% weight? Does anybody have a different suggestion? And silence is agreement. Network.
I think probably if like as we go down the line, if we decide that something is, I don't know if what I'm about to say is going to make sense, but if something down the line doesn't make sense, we can add or subtract to what.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's exactly right. So safety is obviously paramount to all of us, each and every last one of us in our minds whenever we are developing transportation projects. Does the group similarly agree that safety carries the 15% weighting? Again, would the group like to upwardly or downwardly adjust the safety criteria? I'm not saying speak now or forever hold your peace, but is greenhouse gas mitigation pertinent to the Central Front Range Transportation Planning Region members in scoring MMOF applications? Currently, that has a 10% criteria weighting. Similarly, equity. Is the project located in or providing benefits to a disproportionately impacted community or to a traditionally underserved and or disadvantaged community?
Jeff, Max had his hand raised, and I have something to say about greenhouse gases as well.
Thanks for, I'm not seeing hands, so please, Max.
Max, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, Sam, I think we were probably going to share the same thing. There seems to have been a bit of talk, at least with a few of the TPR board members, that when it comes to greenhouse gas mitigation, while important, when it comes to some of our rural areas, we would much rather see transportation service be available, I guess, or expanded and not have that as a potential barrier for some of our rural communities.
So that being said, do you all have a proposed weighting?
And not that I'm suggesting this for this topic, greenhouse gases, but we can, just so that everybody in the room is aware, we can remove one of these criterias, correct? If we wanted to.
Yeah, that's right. You all have free reign on this list here.
I would suggest that we reduce that weighting and add it to either, my suggestion would be added to either this one here, modal connectivity, or safety, or quality of life, where we can split it up between those. That would be, or like economic impact. I think that's the word. I don't know, sorry. But I think that we could, in my opinion, we could reduce that, but I don't know how everybody else feels.
So this is Kathy Lowry. I agree. I would move the greenhouse gas down to 5, and I would put the 5 in the first one, the network connectivity. I think that, in my mind, that's most important. And I'm understanding that this grid is to come up with a quantitative score, but there's also going to be a qualitative measure with these projects applied. So it's not the only metrics that's being used, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have anything in here that provides, I mean, you can make notes, right? So, this is an Excel workbook, and each of your committee members would use it to evaluate the set of applications, and you can maybe put notes down at the bottom, which is then would be, qualitative, subjective kind of comments or questions that you would then discuss when you all sit down as a committee.
Does everybody agree with what Kathy said? Because I can edit this spreadsheet now, and we can just use that going forward if that's what everybody wants to do. So Kathy suggested reduce this to 5 and add it to, did you say this one here, modal connectivity, Kathy?
Yes.
Does
Okay.
everybody agree? I would agree to that. Oh, Leo has his hand raised. Go ahead, Leo.
I'm not on the scoring committee, I don't believe. At least I've never been asked. If I was, though, I would rather have fewer categories, and I would just eliminate greenhouse gas and add the points to the other categories and have a few lesser criteria to score on all of these applications and projects, because it seems like it's going to be pretty daunting, or could potentially be pretty daunting for that group.
I agree with Leo. I don't know if anybody else, but I agree with Leo. I think we should split that up between here, and wherever. I don't know, but
Yeah, I would concur with Leo as well. I mean, one of the TPR board members had suggested either making the GHG as low as possible or removing it entirely.
So this is Kathy Lowry again. So I would not be in favor of that. I think we should leave it at 5 because, and maybe this relates to the project that we're contemplating, but we would, as part of our project, reduce the number of vehicles on the road. So I think that should be, given some weight in the analysis.
do we have any other folks in the room that have any ideas on that?
Is there another factor that could be modified to try to capture that reduction in vehicle miles? Like, could you modify the criteria of one of the other factors to maybe fit that and add those 5 points into their area?
That's a great idea. Like, kind of add that description into, like, I would suggest maybe this one here.
Or
I'd
even
probably recommend quality of life and public health.
Oh, okay, that's a good idea too. So let me see how good my skills are here.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
So,
thanks you all for the
quality of life.
interaction. This is great.
Oh, what am I doing here? We're going to test my skills publicly on a recording.
You can do it.
Like that. And then we can do that. And then.
And then did you want to add?
Did you want to add 5 like that? Kathy, does that seem fair? Because your idea was have it at 5. So if we add the 5 to quality of life with that description, is that fair?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Anyone else have anything else to say about that? Okay, then she's done. I'm gonna click save on that one.
Nice work, everybody. Thank you for that. All right.
We went through safety, so I guess we'd be at equity now, Jeff.
Right. I have nothing more to say about any of these other than to answer questions. At this point, it's in y'all's hands as far as the weighting goes. Does anybody else have any other suggestions for any of these other criteria?
Do folks in the room want us to go through this or no?
I think Michael hit the nail on the head. These are pretty standard scoring criteria that we at least see across multiple multimodal focused grant programs.
I'm okay with it.
Going once, going twice. Okay.
All right, I click save on this, so I guess that's what we're deciding we're going to use.
Oops. Okay.
So without more discussion, I just wanted to make sure if there was any as you looked at them, you talked about some of the ones at the top of the list a little bit more, but are there any other questions? Just how you're interpreting the description of them, just so everybody's aware, you know, and on the same page about what you're actually evaluating for. Okay. Just want to make sure in case anybody had questions and needed clarification.
Okay. Where are we here? It's 9:56, so wake up, everybody. All right, that was the score sheet. Thank you for that. Let's shall we touch upon Leo's point as far as the scoring committee? As I mentioned, it would be, in my perfect world, I would have a small handful, an odd number of people to volunteer to do this. I understand everybody has day jobs. I hope to make this the least amount of work on your part as I can. There still will be, you know, evaluation and reviewing and reading through these things. But all of that being said, like I mentioned, if you turn in an application, yes, you are still eligible to be a member of the scoring committee. So to Leo's point, if you would like to volunteer, please go ahead and volunteer now, and then we can work with you all after this separately to get you prepared. Do I have any volunteers?
If you want to volunteer, I would suggest raising your hand and then I can point you out.
Kathy? Kathy Lowry? If nobody volunteers, then I will pick your names out of a hat afterwards. Sam, did you volunteer?
No. Are you volunteering me right now?
I think Samantha would be good.
Oh, I just got I actually have a lot on my plate here at COG, or else I would. But I'm a little worried about that.
Yeah. Samantha, I wonder if I might take a minute and sort of describe what this is going to look like. With the MMOF email that we have set up, everything will come to us. What I'm going to do is any applications and any of the documents that come with those applications, we're going to get everything set up into a shared Google Drive that I'll share with you and whoever is on the committee. So I'll compile them all into one nice little place. And then, you know, CDOT will do their review, enter the comments on them. We'll, you know, email them back to the applicants. When the finals come in, all the final applications will be in one place for everybody to go do their review and fill out their, you know, do their scoring. So we're going to try to facilitate this in a way that's, you know, not a ton of work for everybody to be like emailing documents around. And we'll do whatever else we need to make it, you know, easy, less work for everybody. I mean, there's nothing you can do. You can't get around the fact that you have to look them over and make an evaluation, right? But we want to facilitate as much of the messy part of it as we can.
I think Leo has a...
Could you speak to, you know, I anticipate Canyon City will submit an application for something. How does that work if I were to serve on the scoring committee and also be an applicant for this program?
That's where we would ask each of you applicants on the scoring committee to recuse yourself from scoring your own application.
Leo, do you have your hand raised to volunteer?
Yeah, I'll be willing to serve in that role.
Thank you.
I do have some vacation planned around Thanksgiving. So, you know, back to the schedule, if we could potentially push that out a little bit, that would help me, just because I'll be pretty constrained for time around then. And I think that's also right around the deadline for the Safe Routes to School grant programs. So I just don't want to be working on them both kind of concurrently and have that on my plate at the same time.
loud and clear. I completely understand. And Kathy and Leo, at least, we will follow up with you guys after this in the very near future to hammer out that timeline to flex to your schedules.
We really
So
just
do I-
need one more, right? For a tiebreaker. We were hoping for 5, but if we can get 3, that'd be fantastic.
That'd be
I was
lovely.
thinking at first 3 would be too little, but 5 might be a lot. But if we can only get 3, that'd be great.
Just really quick to follow up,
Yep.
Leo Evans, just to let you know, the Safe Routes to School application deadline is November 4th. So just that way you can have that in your calendar.
That's even sooner. Yikes. All right, well, if we can't settle this right now, then I can volunteer somebody. I guess.
I'll go ahead and do it because I'm thinking about it. I'm like, well, no, we're thinking like November, December-ish time frame. I might be okay by then. So if somebody wants to take my place, that's fine. But I'll go ahead and volunteer myself for right now. That way we can move forward. But
Thanks.
I think it'll be okay going in that time frame, November and December. I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I'll just say again that if the reticence for folks to get involved and commit to this is because of the schedule, then open that conversation up again. There is no rush if it means not doing this, doing it right. Just find a schedule that works for enough of you to have a good scoring committee. I would say if you end up with 3 scoring committee and some of them are abstaining from doing scoring, then you have 2 people scoring a project, which can result in very skewed scores, right? I mean, like you all could be affected negatively without having a good number of you at least weighing in on the scores. So I'd encourage you to find a way to have several more.
Well, and I think there's some folks from PPACG that might be interested, but couldn't make the call today because of their their board meeting is today. So there might be some folks when they see this recording, and then I'll send out a reminder email to ask folks for some participation. We're looking for at least 2 more.
Sorry to scare everybody with the proposed timeline. It's just a draft. But yeah, that's a good point too, Sam. We can reach out as an example to Victoria.
Yeah. Kathy,
Okay.
did you have your hand raised because you had a question or just because of the just volunteering yourself? I just want to make sure before we move on.
Just volunteering, I'm good.
Okay, cool.
Thank you all. Sam, would you mind switching to, since it's 10:03, would you mind switching to the, what do I call this? It's called the CFR TPR MMOF October 2024, but it has the local fund projections and the local match rates.
I think that's the one you're looking for.
Thank you. Multitasking here. So come on. Does everybody, Okay, again, I transcribed these from Michael's fantastic program guidebook, the original document that we've been going through. So if anybody catches an error on here, it's my mistake. And again, the headquarters, Michael's big guidebook is the superseding authority on the match rates and the program amount. All of that being said, I did indicate this is a 5 years of funding call for projects, fiscal years 24. These are state fiscal years 24 through 28. Each of the yearly allocations is highlighted in that top table. The entire amount for the 5 years for all of Central Front Range is a little over $1.5 million, $1,504,166. And then underneath that, in alphabetical order, each jurisdiction and their percent match rate required per the guidebook. Again, that section in the guidebook does cover if you do have a match rate reduction request. We can help you through that in the future. But meanwhile, do please take these into account as far as your local budget and what your governing body, your BOCC, your counselors will allow for. And then Sam, if you wouldn't mind, please switching to, sorry, the application. So everybody can see that. Thank you. So this is attached. Thank you very much, Sam. This is attached to the meeting invitation, and this is also found on Michael's central CDOT MMOF website. This is a fillable PDF for the transportation planning region. Everybody in the room is Central Front Range from that drop-down arrow box. The sponsor agency name is pretty self-explanatory. If you're a school district, if you are a municipality, if you are a metro district, a county, a department within one of those. The applicant contact is the person filling out the application. That might be different from the actual project manager for the local agency if it is awarded. Those can be different people, so we do ask that you indicate those two different people on the application, please, so we know ahead of time. Project name, a pretty simple, catchy name, I guess, for it, and it can be anything from, as an example, Cripple Creek Sidewalks to Teller Senior Coalition Fixed Route number 3. And then scrolling through this thing, the project types, there's all the different categories of types. At the top are the different transit categories, fixed route or on demand. So that covers all the different transit operations. Capital and rolling stock, for those in the room, rolling stock are actual vehicles. Equipment, this could be, gosh, we can go into the weeds with equipment, but this could be anything from, as an example, potentially new fare boxes in your buses to things like that. Operations, exactly as indicated. So the operating assistance funding, a facility, so building a new bus barn potentially, or a planning document. So planning out your transit operations for a short, mid, or long-term period. Transportation Demand Management Program, I can send you more information on what the definition of TDM is, but very, very in a nutshell, TDM is managing transportation demand to help alleviate congestion and potentially introduce multiple modes of travel to the general public. A multimodal mobility project enabled by new technology. We've seen pretty interesting examples from around the state regarding that. Those could be maybe reservations. That could potentially even be maybe a bus, like a Where's My Bus ride reservation kind of app. A multimodal transportation study, generally a bike pedestrian plan, but also the aforementioned transit operations and maybe even capital replacement plans. Excuse me, bicycle or pedestrian projects. So not just sidewalks, not just bike lanes. It could be bridges, pathways, etc. Modeling transportation, that could be, obviously our urban partners are more interested in that, modeling transportation needs for their futures, or the GHG greenhouse gas mitigation project. Your physical location and limits, if you're looking to build a facility, what would be the address of said facility? Limits means if it's like a roadway or a pathway project, limits could be mile marker 1.7 to 3.2 or something to that effect. Or like Arkansas River Trail mile 0.0 to 1.8. Those are the limits. Obviously, counties and municipalities, self-explanatory. Scroll down, please, to scope of work. This is where you take the time to actually describe the work and the deliverables. Please note in parentheses in this section, don't include why it's being done or the benefits. That's a separate section. The scope of work is literally just what are you looking to fund with this grant award and what are the deliverables from each of the phases of your project. And then we ask that you figure out your total project cost, that's potential grant award plus your local match. We ask that you use the drop-down arrow to select your apropos local match based on the chart at the end of the guidebook or my handout. That's the 0, 25, or 50%. And then we ask that you calculate your local match based on that percentage and the total project cost. And then, excuse me, The brief description of your agency's service area to justify the match rate. I'll keep picking on Teller Senior Coalition. Again, if Teller Senior Coalition is proposing, as an example, I'm pulling this out of the sky, maybe a new route that runs all the way down into Colorado Springs, then we would ask that the route's based in Teller County, it serves the people of Teller County, and then it picks up all around Teller County just to take them into the big city. Well, then to me, that is a Teller County project and a Teller County match rate. And then the funding requests, we are going to ask that you potentially could, if possible, if not the end of the world, but potentially could break up the project into different years based on the funding allocations per year. And then obviously this is auto-calculated, as it says, for the total amount requested. And then this is very important. The next couple of tables, other secured funding. Secured funding are already awarded. So you have an award letter in your hand from whatever other grant program or other formula funding program that you are going to be matching with the MMOF award. So do please list all of those out. Scroll down, please. If you are hoping to leverage your MMOF award against another grant program that you are also concurrently applying for but have not received an award, that's this table here on this page 3, the not yet secured. That is going to help. Listing this in the application will help the committee judge the project's feasibility and readiness. And so moving along, we do ask that you have developed a timeline. Excuse me, we understand that timelines change, extenuating circumstances happen. This is not set in stone. This is just you giving the committee an idea of what this will take and demonstrating your grasp of the whole construction and pre-construction timeline. The readiness, this is a very important question. Is the right of way, in CDOT speak, right of way equates to property on you all's end? Is the property for the project secured? Again, if you're looking to build a facility as an example, do you own or lease the parcel upon which you want to build the facility? And if so, then you're going to have to provide the proof of ownership to our right-of-way unit so they can clear the project. If it is not secured, then obviously that will impact your project's timeline, and we will be more than happy to hook you up with our subject matter experts in right-of-way to help you through that process and to give you a more comfortable grasp of how long it can take. The environmental review, again, what I said earlier, if you do not have, your agency does not have the staff or the technical capacity to perform the environmental review, I will be asking our environmental unit to do those clearances. If they do not also have the capacity, then that's when we will come back during the draft application development to provide the applicant with a ballpark estimate of what that would cost to contract the environmental clearances out so that you can build that cost into your application so that your agency is not entirely on the hook if we can help. Scroll down, please. The benefits of the project. These are the aforementioned scoring criteria. Those are all just listed directly from that sheet. Obviously, you all have provided your input. Thank you very much on the weighting of the criteria. So do please adjust your answers for how you developed your weighting. Go ahead and scroll down, please.
I do have a question about this.
Mm-hmm.
Since we decided to essentially eliminate the greenhouse gas part of our scoring, would the applicants need to answer number 3, or should they just put something in there anyway?
I think it's a benefit to the scoring committee to read if the applicant does have something to say. I know Michael wants to, I think, jump in, but if it is not necessary, then no, I don't think that anything needs provided. Do please correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, you actually kept the greenhouse gas benefit in your criteria. It's not a standalone, right?
Yeah, we added the criteria to a different one.
Yeah,
we
so I mean,
took-
there's no
yeah.
harm, there's no harm in just leaving this as is and, speak to that specifically. And if it's an NA, it's an NA, that's all right. But it should weigh in on what you score for that network. No, actually, I forgot where you put it. You put it to the quality of life one,
Quality of
but
life.
it's another consideration. Yeah.
That was my question. Thank you.
Okay. Yep, keep going. Thank you very much. The planning and support. This is where we are asking you if this project is out of the blue or if this project already exists somewhere. Perhaps your transit agency has a short, medium, or long-term operating plan. Perhaps your agency has a capital improvement plan. Certainly, some of these projects can come from the regional transportation plan that we just met about on Monday with Central Front Range. The projects could come from the 10-year plan. The projects could come from your own municipality or county's comprehensive plan. So there are certainly a wide array of planning documents or studies that can provide, that kind of document support for where this project came from. We would like you to list those. Excuse me, the local, regional, statewide, public and private support for the project. Again, that's, everything from your city council has decided to overmatch this project. That's obviously demonstrating extra support. Those kind of things. If you have any letters of support from adjacent property owners, adjacent businesses, or other agencies that will benefit from the project, those are very much appreciated. And I already said list the local, regional, or statewide plans that either ID or support this project. And then we have at the bottom of this sheet the required supplemental attachments. Pretty self-explanatory. The attachment E, environmental review in this case. If your agency is able to conduct that, that's fantastic. If it is not, then that attachment, I imagine, will be our Region 2 specialty units providing you with what is an anticipated clearance, I guess, not timeline, not schedule, but list of clearances and what to look for, and then that estimated cost. The maintenance plans, agreements, or covenants, understand, please, if you're looking to, let's say, build a new sidewalk in a heretofore underserved portion of town, can your agency's Parks and Rec or Public Works Department absorb the cost of maintaining that new sidewalk over the next 20, 30, 40 years? Who's going to snowplow it? That kind of stuff. The right-of-way easements, property description, pretty self-explanatory. Again, if you need to acquire property or a permanent easement or even a temporary easement, again, our local agency coordinators can help you through that process with our right-of-way unit. The maps, plans, and photographs, that attachment D, sorry, I'm jumping around, but that maps, plans, and photographs is extremely important. We ask that everybody tell an easy to understand visual story of your project. Any and all maps, any and all plans that already exist, conceptual design, anything like that. And obviously site photographs, whether those are taken by you on the ground or even screenshots from Google Maps, Google Earth. Everything is very much appreciated to help the scoring committee through that process, understand the context of your project. Scroll down, thank you. And then this is our review on our internal end here at CDOT. This is where I will be the point of contact for all of our internal specialty units to get these comments, to get the recommendations and any questions that need answered, excuse me, during the whole development process. That is the application. I've talked a whole heck of a lot. Do any of you all have questions about the application? Kathy, is your hand still raised for a question? Maybe not.
I'm good.
Thank you. Okay.
Not all projects are going to require an environmental review, correct? It's mostly going to be like purchasing. Okay, go ahead, answer. Okay, go ahead.
Well, you were about to hit the nail on the head. It most will require an environmental review. If
Okay.
it's a planning study, then that does not. If it's vehicle purchase, no. But pretty much everything else, right, Michael?
Leo has his hand raised.
Is the
Go ahead.
is the environmental review the same as it is for a federally funded project, being that this is just state dollars, or are there any deviations in what you clear for the environmental process?
I do not believe that there are deviations. Matt Pettit, if you're still here, can you know, or Lachelle?
Lachelle has her hand raised. Go ahead, Lachelle.
Yeah, so if there are slight deviations, the requirements for environmental clearance is slightly reduced for state-funded only projects. However, if there's any indication that there's going to be federal funds added to the project at some point, we clear it through as we would with federal guidelines. If we're certain that it's state only, then there are a few less requirements.
Thanks for that. I am at the end of all of the materials. So with the 9 minutes that we had left here, do please, if anybody needs to get into the weeds or any other questions, while Lachelle's here especially and Michael are here, please fire away.
So this is Kathy Lowry. I have a question. So you have like $1.5 million that I think you're planning to allocate for MMOF funding for the next through 28. Is there additional MMOF funding coming after this, or is this basically going to be it through 2028? Just curious.
I think your question is, will there be additional funding coming in these fiscal years or future?
Future after fiscal year 2028. I know
okay.
the legislation created the funding through 32.
Yes, right. So, right, it was Senate Bill 260 that kind of created the ongoing funding, including creating the retail service delivery fees, right? That's the 27 or 28 cents that we pay every time we order something from Amazon or something like that. Those funds, Senate Bill 260 basically said, yeah, this is going to transfer those funds to the MMOF program up through 2032. But I'd be very surprised if the legislature just decided to let the retail service fee just disappear and not continue it, which would basically end the MMOF program and so forth. But that's, I'm not a fortune teller. Who knows what will happen? But the Central Front Range, your allocation is by FY28, it's about $350,000, and it'll slightly grow every year. So that's what your subsequent years, right? So in a couple more years, you'll be doing this again, and you'll probably be looking at your FY29 and 30 funds and deciding where those will go.
Did that answer your question? Sorry.
Yep, I'm good.
One thing I just wanted to add, this is Lachelle, is that when we receive draft applications, any new projects, proposed new projects that are going to come through my group, infrastructure projects, we'll want to do an on-site visit. Anything that's already existing that you're trying to add money to, we probably don't need to do an on-site, but we'll still follow up virtually.
Do please use Lachelle's group. They are a fantastic resource, guys. They can answer any and all questions and certainly point you in the right direction of the subject matter expert.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's my group, for those of you that don't know, are Matt Pettit, Jr. Rodriguez, and Don Skanga. You can reach out to any of us.
So, Jeff, if I might interject something before we hang up here, we've covered a lot of things today. We have had two applicant workshops. Well, I'm sorry, we've had one applicant workshop, and we have another one coming up on November 4th. During that applicant workshop, that's for anybody and everybody. You know, you can attend that as a TPR member. You can attend that as a potential applicant. In that workshop, we do a lot of what we just covered today. We'll talk through the basics of the program, but more importantly, we'll be talking about what to expect if you get awarded in the grant process. What's expected there? What is the local agency process to see a project through to implementation? And we talk at kind of a high level of that. So if anybody wants to attend that, I encourage you to visit the MMOF web page, which I'm going to put in the chat here in just a second. And there you can actually register for it. So if you're interested and are going to be submitting an application, I encourage you to attend that in case you have any questions about some of the requirements and what might impact your application and your project. All right, so in the chat is the link to the MMOF page, and you'll see them scheduled on the top of it where you can register.
I am muted. Also in the chat for the two people here that stuck through it. Thank you all. Here is my Jeffrey.Guthrie email address here at the state and my phone number. Please do not hesitate to reach out with questions, and at the very least, I can point you in the right direction. Okay.
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
So in your timeline, you don't have a time for presentations for the application. So we're not doing that. We're just going to submit the paper application and decisions will be made based on that.
Your question is why I had worked back from the quarterly TPR meeting date in January. I think it would be valuable, it is my opinion, it would be valuable to have a brief presentation, at least with maybe a project map and description for that TPR date to be prepared with to show to the group. And I say that somewhat hesitantly only because I know that the January TPR meeting will be heavily occupied by the long range plan, the 2050 plan, just like it was 2 days ago.
Right.
So we won't have a huge block of time to do a big presentation. So it's a great question, Kathy. I honestly think it's very valuable to have at least 2 slides or something like that, again with a general map showing the group the context of the area and then what it is that you're applying for. Okay. Facility, a plan.
I know people get burnt on meetings and my emails, but if it was that important and we needed that much time,
right.
If we needed to do a special meeting, we can try to organize something if it was that important to someone or to the group.
Right. That's right. Okay. Well, thank you, my fellow subject matter experts from CDOT. Thank you, Samantha, for hosting this and putting this together. Thank you, Kathy, Leo, etc., Max, for attending and asking questions. Again, I can say this a million times, but I mean it. Do please reach out with questions, and we are here to help. Thank you all so much for your interest.
Thank you. I'm going to end the meeting now.